Hi everyone, very good afternoon. Welcome to our RC class of 2 p.m. So today we're going to discuss how to confidently solve in the RC. I've picked up a reading comment as I always do from a very good quality test paper. Also talk about tricks, technique, approach, manage in the RC. What I wanted to understand is that ultimate solution of managing reading comprehension of one kind or the other is to solve them more often, to read diverse writings, diverse editorials and articles, make summaries, and solve them as often as possible. Other techniques like making a central idea, primary purpose, summary, looking for types of question, looking for types of wrong options, a type of RC. So all these things will help you to knowledge of all these things will reduce the element of surprise and you will be more comfortable when you comprehend. So you can go, if you have not seen this series, go back to the first class happened and then thereafter all the 2 p.m. live classes you can. Ultimate agenda, ultimate key will be to solve questions and keep a track of your wrong answers. Note of them. Go in, you will see a pattern emerging that there'll be a certain kind of questions, kind of options, cite those options, certain kind of reading comprehension, certain branch of knowledge of which you find. Getting that pattern and working on that pattern and improving. Dividing the problem and solving it also helps. For example, if you have a long RC, detail, if you have a long RC, then uh, making then and you find that there are so many paragraphs or there are too few paragraphs and the paragraphs are very long, you can divide those paragraphs into smaller subparts, make short notes or important points, note of them. Then you, if there is a database question, you can come back and you can refer to the since you've done deep reading, you have actively read the passage, you haven't passively read it, understand what was happening. That will the memory fresh for it. So that is it. And see, reading comprehension is about when something comes to you, you read it actively, you make notes, you solve the options, solve the questions, and you go to the next question. And then after going to the next question, the next passage, you forget all about it. Probably you will never read that branch of knowledge, that editorial or article again in your life. But at that point, at that very moment, active reading is required and will only come by regular practice. But it does not require years and thousands of RCs. It doesn't require years of practice. Just focused practice of a few weeks and you will see a lot of improvement in reading comprehension. So my name is Anupam And to stay in touch, download an Academy app, install it, go to Plus, Cat, and subscribe. Go to Saxena 10. My code, you can utilize this code in getting discount. You can see that we have got 5 offerings in front of us. Anything more than 12 months makes sense. It comes down to 1458 a month and or 875 a month for 12 months and 24 months. If you see the pricing for 12 months is 15,750, 24 months is 18,900. The most cost effective, one of the most cost effective courses at a very renowned portal like Unacademy. You've got no cost in my options available, so there are hundreds of videos, hundreds of classes, test series, mock test, sectional test, topic wise test. There are doubt solving sessions, live classes, solutions, and analysis of whatever mock test you get. So it's simply great, and you can see by the hard work which 3 YouTube classes. You can trust us for that. It will help us to bring in better content, and it will get a good percentiling. So basically, reading comprehension is how to confidently solve lengthy RCs. Sometimes we see very lengthy RCs get confused a little. Looking at the length of it, we get afraid. Amount of data which we look at it, we get sort of heart sick. So this will only go away by solving more and more reading comprehensions online, solving variety of types of lengthy, moderate, short, all sorts of RCs. You will solve them a number of times, your confidence will actually. However, there are certain things which can help you. You can, if passage is very long for you, you feel that it's a continuous stretch of words, you can create smaller parts of the divide the passage to smaller parts. And then you can, once you've divided the passage into smaller parts, mentally at least, you can make short notes on your pencil or pen, rough sheet which you will get, or notebook which you will get, and do it with confidence, do it with intent. Then what happens that when you will do it for some 5 minutes on reading, you will get to understand that okay, it's okay if you miss out some details, because if you will not miss out the details, then how will you make short notes? How will you make summary? How will you make important? How will you reduce the length of the material or the data in front? I will have to skip, and that is all right. And since you've divided the RC in smaller parts, conquering it or managing will become, and the mind also sees ki okay, now the problem has reduced from such a big problem to smaller chunks of problem. Now I can solve it easily. More often than you will realize that the questions also which are asked, they sometimes refer to a very localized portion of RC. It does not if it captures the entire essence of the reading comprehension, then it's good, because since you've already made short notes of all the important parts. But even it's it goes to one localized part of it, you actively read the piece, you understood whatever is happening, you know where it is, you can go there and you can come back and you can. Another thing is that speed variation also matters. So what happens that sometimes all the RCs or all the long RCs or whatever the length will not require you to read all the paragraphs, all the information with equal amount of attention. The attention can vary, the attention can vary actually. Uh, it can if you find that in a certain area, find that there is some important argument coming, if you feel that there is some important point is being, or if you find that you know this is something which is going to become is or if you also feel because of experience that this is a sort of a information on which questions can be asked, experience, because when you keep solving RCs, you also get to understand the psyche of a question paper developer, of a question content is specialist. That what sort of problems or what sort of questions can a content specialist pose in front of you? So you tend to become ready for such problems. Um, and Yeah, that's it. So you will realize that you need not focus compl- did not give that amount of attention each and every aspect of it. You can sort of see which area you find it difficult, or which part of the RC that questions can come, part you think that structure according to the structure of the RC. Remember, we discussed that in argumentative type RCs, you have to focus on the arguments. If it's an argumentative type RC and it's a long RC, you can only focus on the main arguments. If it's an analytical RC, then one can sort of ignore, say, certain examples or certain additional information. One can focus on the fine analysis or the layer by layer, or make a note of all the layers from which the author is trying to look at the problem. So in this way, you can reduce the say in the descriptive kind. We find that there is a lot of jargon, there is a lot of information or detail. It may not be necessary to solve all the questions. So one has to skim and skip a lot of information and just see the what is the main central rallying point or the main point mentioned or the main points mentioned. Then you can come back and start solving the questions. If there is certain data specific requirement is here, you can go back to the RC and you can refer to it. So I've written that questions will not need very detailed understanding of all the parts of the passage. So the questions will be 3 to 4 to 5 questions will be asked in reading comprehension. So, and say the paragraph, say the passage is 6 to 7 paragraph long. It stretches across 3 to 4 times of your screen, on the left side of your portion of the screen where RC comes up. 3 times of those you have to scroll down, and then you can then you can eventually read the last line of the RC. So in such cases, all parts of the reading comprehension are not required to solve the question. All questions will not demand you to have an extremely deep understanding of all the areas of the, you can selectively reduce the speed, and you can selectively focus, and you can selectively increase the speed and reduce the gain. Reading more and reading diverse areas. Reading diverse and reading more, these are the, to read more, we read diverse areas. Remember, we discussed that how to read more and how to read diverse. I told that you can subscribe to a newspaper, physical copy of a newspaper, or you can take an online version also of a newspaper. You can go through the editorial section, make summary of at least 1 or 2 paragraph or 3 paragraphs every day of one piece of the editorial. What are editorials? Editorials are the place where the nuanced, fine opinion of this experts of some branch of knowledge. They either have great knowledge in that area, or they have great interest in it. So they research and they read a lot, read books, and they have a lot of experiences, and then they condense them and they sort of write around 10 paragraphs and center one at least. And that's your lead editorial of a newspaper. So this is how it works actually. So yeah. So let's try and solve a reading comprehension. Let's start talking. Yeah. So here we are in front of. I hope you can see the RC properly. Let's try and read it. Let me see if we can copy it in a doc file. But I can increase the copy this size of the size of the font is little, might not be able to. We have copied till this. Remember, okay? Forget this. Copied. Let's read them. Let's understand them. It's sometimes said that consciousness is a mystery in the sense that we have no idea that this is clearly not true. What could be better known to us in our own feelings and experiences? The mystery of consciousness is not what consciousness is, but why it is. So, if consciousness is why it exists, not what is. We know there, or we know the experience, but we don't know why it exists. Modern brain imaging techniques have provided us the rich body of correlations and experiences had by. For example, that a person are doing stimulation in his or her retromedial hypothalamus. Retromedial hypothalamus is a part of the brain which gives us sensation of hunger, fear, and the removal. Hungry, eat it through your. So first, retromedial hypothalamus will tell that you're hungry. then retromedial hypothalamus will tell that you are not having it. So we know that for a person undergoing a stimulation in his or her retromedial hypothalamus feels hunger. The problem is that no one knows why these correlations hold. It seems perfectly conceivable that retromedial hypothalamus stimulation do its job in brain without giving rise to any kind of feeling at all. No one has even the beginnings of an explanation of why some physical such as we have experienced. This is a difficulty David famously called Chalmers famously called the hard problem of consciousness. So we don't. So this, if we summarize this part till here, that we don't know what consciousness, why does it exist, and why do physical systems or physical processes which are happening in the mind, they are giving us some sort of a feeling or some sort of an experience. We don't know what we are. Further, copy it and so I'm not going to sort of apply this in any area, just that I'll copy it and I will do it for the teaching purpose and copyright breach. I have no doubts about it. For teaching it, it is rightness, but materialists hope that we will one day be able to explain consciousness purely physically. Now we were saying that this is the problem, that we don't know why certain physical uh, certain activities happen at a physiological level. They result in certain experiences and feelings. Materials hope that we'll one day be able to attain consciousness purely physical terms. Project now has a long history of failure. The problem with materialist approaches to the hard problem is that they always end up avoiding the issue by redefining what we mean by. They start off by declaring that they are going to solve the hard problem to explain experience. But somewhere along the way, they start using the word consciousness not to the experience, but to some complex behavioral functioning associated with it, such as ability of a person to monitor their internal states or to process information about the training. Complex behavior is an important scientific endeavor, but the hard problem of consciousness cannot be solved by changing. Sorry, but the hard problem of consciousness cannot be solved by changing the subject. In spite of these difficulties, many scientists and philosophers maintain optimism that materialism will at every point in this story's history. Philosophers have declared that certain phenomena are too special to be explained by light, only to be subsequently proven wrong by Dante's by specialist mark. So they're saying that the materialists think that they will be able to explain the consciousness in purely physical terms, but this project has been failure because they tend to define consciousness incorrectly. They change the subject and they start talking about the awareness of a person or their ability to process information. But they somewhere down the chain uh, they do not realize that they've changed the topic, and changing the topic doesn't solve the problem. In spite of these difficulties, many scientists and philosophers maintain optimism. So they say that in spite of whatever the challenges people are facing, the people who are working in the field of trying to explain experiences by the physical actions, they're confident that they'll be able to solve it one day. This is how it is. Uh, Now the problem, so let's sort of go ahead with it. So you can see that it's a long RC, right? It is taking time to read and it is long. The entire last part. Before Galileo, it was generally assumed that matter had, so we sure, right? But before Galileo, it was generally assumed that matter had sensory quality. Paprika was spicy. Paprika is your red colored capsicum. Flowers were smelling. How could an equation capture the taste of paprika? If sensory qualities can be captured in a mathematical vocabulary, it seemed to follow that a mathematical vocabulary could never capture the complete nature of it. Was before Galileo, people thought that these qualities, these sensory qualities, cannot be captured by mathematics. Galileo's solution was to strip matter out of its sensory qualities and put them in the soul. So what Galileo did, that Galileo took the also strip, he sort of took out it from the matter, and that certain things are there because it is in them, it is in the matter. Matter had sensory qualities, and that we can never capture it. Galileo said that okay, we will. He said he will take out these sensory qualities of red and spiciness and sweetness and put them in the soul. As you might put it in the mind, the sweet smell isn't in the flowers but in the soul of the person smelling. Even the colors for Galileo weren't on the surface of the objects themselves, but in the soul of the person observing it. And the matter in itself has no sensory qualities, it is possible in principle to describe a material world in purely quantitative vocabulary of mathematics. This was the birth of mathematical speech. That since he stripped off the matter of all the sensory qualities, and the sensory qualities were a part of the human being who is looking at it, this is where the mathematical physics came into being. But of course, Galileo didn't deny the existence of qualities. If Galileo were to time travel to present day and he told that scientists are having a consciousness in pure terms, he said he would no doubt say, of course they do. I created physical science by taking consciousness out of the physical. He's saying so what Galileo will say that I took out, so because when he sort of, from the, say, a sweet smelling flower, when he took took that awareness, and he said that all these senses are all these qualities are in the mind of the person, and this is just a flower, hence you can analyze it. Similarly, the consciousness has also been removed from the physical state and has to be seen from the more soul and more deeper part of our, and that is how he would say, that's how he would term the problem as. So there has to be a different dimension of looking at the problem from Galileo's standpoint. Now let's try and solve the problem. Questions. Which of the following questions captures the essence of the passage? Materialists define the hard problem by changing. No, they don't. Hard problem cannot be solved by materialists. This can be. Materialists can explain the reasons humans see a particular color. This was not told. Materialists and philosophers agree on the concept of consciousness. This was never told. Hard problem can be best solved by segregation. So basically, B is the answer, because that's what is said in the last line, that the hard problem, that the consciousness has to be removed from the material aspect. It has to be seen from a very soul level aspect, and only then they can solve the problem of. So B is the answer. It was easy because all the other options, materialists and philosophers, agree on the concept of. They don't agree on the consciousness. They said that one day they can sort of solve it. A hard problem can be best solved by segregation. Segregation was nowhere mentioned. It was the perspective of looking at it that was mentioned. Materialists can explain the reasons humans see behind a particular color. That was also nowhere mentioned. And materialists redefine the hard problem by changing the issues. This was also not what they were changing. They were changing the definition of consciousness, and hence they were changing the, that was not the essence of it. Essence was that hard problem cannot be solved by the was there, because in the last line he says, right, of course they do. I created physical science by taking consciousness out of the physical world. Next question. So the following options would most likely be an example of hard problem. So which of the following would be the most likely to be a problem, a part of example of, which of the following options would most likely be an example of the hard problem? A. Feeling the heat while holding a glass of hot water. Part of hot. Probably no, because is can be defined that particular rise in the temperature glass of the water to some part of our mind, to some nervous part of our mind, we are sort of seeing, and there's a skin connection, touching it. It is more of at a much more physical aspect. Experiencing joy after doing well in an examination. This is again a good option, but then there is exact information why, we can sort of somehow explain that there is a correlationship between how we answer and how much we answer and how well we answer to the level of joy which we feel. Okay? Probably we can keep it as a standby, but it can be, cannot be answered. Let's look for better options. What makes us tired after walking for 20 kilometers? Now, remember, we were talking about the consciousness. We were talking about the sensory capabilities, such as, such as the smell of the flower or the spiciness of the paprika. In the beginning, we're talking about things like, one moment. When going back to the RC, if you don't remember, that we're talking about the that if there is if we feel hunger at a very, if our hypothalamus is somewhere retromedial, hypothalamus may, if there is a stimulation happening, why do we feel hunger? Why doesn't it just, it can happen without experience, and one more thing which we also discussed in the beginning is that why consciousness? Why do we have this emotion? Okay, why do we have an so we were on the earlier question. So here in these cases, holding a glass of water, we know, having experiencing joy, we are aware. What makes us tired after walking for 20 kilometers? Again, it's explain something. But why we posted in front of a deity? Now this is not really experience. Just an human belief system, somewhere related to a different sort of. Why do humans take birth? Yeah, this is a very a problem, because we really don't know that, what we really are not completely aware of this problem, that for what reasons humans take birth, what are the that we are still in the physical level of the problem. We haven't really understood the problem from a consciousness standpoint, from a sensory standpoint. So I think yeah, E is the right answer. Then comes your next question. Um, if the following statements can be inferred from the passage. Passage argues that science could uncover all the mysteries of the world. No. Passage argues that science could uncover all the mysteries of the world by giving alternate explanations. No. The passage argues that science could never uncover all the mysteries of nature. Okay. D. Passage argues that science and consciousness are two different. This is what the science argues, that physical sciences and consciousness are two different domains. This is what there is a difference. The Galileo said that I stripped off physical sciences from the consciousness. They are two different. It's in the soul of the person. Okay? They are two different domains. Probably, they cannot explain each. The passage argues that there is no that nature is so mysterious that humans are not even aware of the phenomenon that can be researched. This is big. So that's pretty much it for time being. I did good research on this topic, and I with we'll meet again onwards, and we will solve any more questions. Can solving reading comprehension phone. Please subscribe to Academy. So you'll get live classes. You can interact with the educator, live board, live posts, and analysis, live doubt clearing sessions. Amazing to join an academy as a student, and you can so many offerings. First, use my code Saxena10. You will get that much.